De retour sur le plateau.
Welcome back to our TV set and Vape Expo. So, three new friends here with me to deal with e-cigarette and really make a tour of the Vape revolution. And in fact, we'll come back, all the previous conferences, because it's always important to compare different editions, what has been said in the past on this, for example, European directive. But now I would like to introduce my friends here. First, Jingwen from Standpoint Vapor from China, Gillian for Irish Association, and Michael Larsen from President of BECIG, Professional Association of Denmark. So first of all, before dealing with China, I would like to ask a few questions to our European friends as far as the different exchanges in the past about the European directive mainly, and also to ask you how you can leave that process in Ireland and in Denmark. So Gillian, you have the floor.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting the Irish Vape Vendors Association here today to speak. We're a very small market in Ireland. We are about 130 to 150,000 users of electronic cigarettes. And I suppose we are a little bit late to the party as regards trying to counteract some of the measures. But we have done a lot in a year. We've only been in existence in a year. We have 7 very, very strong vocal companies in Ireland that are willing to take up the fight against some of the misinformation, against some of the more scary measures that were put forward even before the TPD was announced. So these innovative products are in Ireland still being portrayed as an invention of tobacco companies. They are still maligned as being a tobacco product. There is a lot of misinformation in the public domain about the products, and that's something that we're constantly, every time some news story tries to, put down the product, the first thing that we have to do is remind the public that we're not tobacco companies. And that's the biggest battle that we face in Ireland.
Okay. Michael, about the Denmark, you've got new info, I think, but the process is ongoing.
Yes, actually, we got something news back in Denmark. It was starting by the TPD that they want to implant it, by the whole thing that there was in the EU, but they went further and they went quite hard to get into, because you couldn't sell anything in Denmark for 6 months because there are no products on the market now, the Danish government meant. So they just shut down the market and we couldn't have the right to sell anything back home. But actually, we're putting in a hearing answer in the first round, and they took the law a bit back, and now they have come out and said they are going to implant the TPD in May 2016, but actually they are going to give us 1 year to make the process how we can get the things on the market. But there is one small problem, that is one product in Denmark. You need to pay 4,000 euros for just one. Actually, they just said a drip tip, that is 4,000 euros. So you can imagine if you got 50 kinds of drip tips, that's 4,000 a piece. So it will ruin all the companies that are back in Denmark. What else we are fighting about? I think it's the way that the traders are seeing it, because a lot of people back home don't think that the TPD will be implanted. They just think that, all right, this is maybe going to be a law. We don't think it will be implanted. So actually now we have a small problem getting people into the trade organization, because they say, no, let's wait and see what's happening. They have not realized yet that it's going to be there, and people need to stand up, and we need to speak, and we need to speak together, like we are one voice, not 20 people coming to the government, because they don't want to hear 20 voices.
Jingwen, vous allez nous présenter.
Jingwen, you will introduce your company, Chinese company, and the different actions in Europe also. But as far as the exchanges are concerned, the debate about the regulation in Europe and in the US, how do you consider things? How do you get prepared to that change of processes, change of methods to, implement that procedure? Well, for the last question, yes, I would say absolutely. Main part of these Chinese companies in vape, which export a lot in Europe and in the US, and the market, in China, which is very influenced by the American market. Yes, really, I think Chinese companies which are being implemented and created in order to answer to regulations will absolutely work in that direction. Michael, how do you consider the future of vape in Denmark? You are dealing with costs very high, but apart from that, we are evoking also different needs or requirements which are quite impossible for SMEs, for example. How do you see the future for the 2 or 3 years? Do you think you'll manage to have a mobilization and change the deal?
Yeah, actually, I think we could get the things into the law that we want to, because the government are starting to hear our voice. They are willing to give us a chance to speak out to them, and if we do it the right way, I think it will be good for the market back home. And I think if we really take in the working shoes and do a lot in SEN by the standardization, like we are doing it in Denmark. Actually, last week there was a meeting in the Danish standardization, and actually there we got to speak to the healthcare ministration, and there they went for and said, all right, let us look into what you are doing in the standardization as in SEN, because actually my opinion is that if we want to do it right, then we must have the standardization, and then we can say, all right, now we can make this law and this law and this law. It doesn't fit now because they have put something down our heads and we can't find the way around to make it. So, but I think there will be a way to get around it, and I think the market will be still going on in Denmark.
Gillian, in Ireland, are you talking about a possible black market that will come up after maybe the implementation of the TPD? How do you feel about these regulations, and do you expect any big changes? I'm thinking, for example, about the new report from Public Health England. Do you think it can have an impact for the future?
Absolutely. I think the Public Health England report has been one of the most important pieces of evidence that we've been able to give the Irish authorities, the people in Irish public health, because it sort of felt like we were giving them the evidence for the last number of years, but it was this abstract thing that was way off in the distance. When it's your nearest neighbour and it's something as eminent as Public Health England coming out to say that these products are 95% safer than smoking, I think it's sent a few of the maybe sillier arguments against this product back under the carpet, and that's been a great thing, because it's the next week after the Public Health England report came out, we had one of the best pieces of positive media in Irish national media talking about electronic cigarettes in a very, very balanced way, presenting evidence, and and letting those in public health maybe speak for themselves. I mean, we had somebody in public health in one sentence say that if every Irish smoker turned to electronic cigarettes, that would be a brilliant thing. But the next thing that person said was, what's actually in the vapor? We don't know. So I think the main thing for the public health report for me was the need for clear and unambiguous messaging on these products. We're still trying to fight that in Ireland.
Bon, une énorme bataille en Europe. Alors, c'est vrai que le salon est un salon.
This Vape Expo is very important. It's an international exhibition. We've been dealing with the US, but also Europe. But now it's the great occasion to deal with China. So thank you so much, Jingwen, to be here this afternoon. You have a presentation here to introduce to us about the China vaping, and we'll actually have the opportunity to see how you handle this. And we shall start with your presentation, which is here behind us, and you have the floor. Many thanks. First, my name is Jingwen. I work for the SPV company and in China, and it's a company which is specialized in producers, manufacturers of e-liquids. And before starting our presentation, I would like to thank Rémi and also Elise, Arnaud, and also Vape Expo for this excellent organization and good, magnificent opportunity. So first, how is our company and our group working? So Huabao, it's a group which is Chinese, specialized in flavors. Flavors used in different fields, tobacco, so also food and perfumes. And amongst the 10 biggest producers of flavors in the whole world. And Habo has now a big group, is now a leader in China, and we, supply also CNTC, China Tobacco, in China more than 20 years now, for more than 20 years. So since 2014, the group has decided to create a branch, SPV, which is based in Shanghai, and for products, e-cigarettes, and also all new tobacco products, so-called new product, and it is forbidden in Europe, but in Sweden it's not in Sweden. In Sweden it is in Denmark. Snus. No. Yes, it is in Sweden. And then the market, tobacco market, this is general, idea, overview on our traditional market. So China historically is, the first country in the world as far as the number of smokers are concerned. Yes, it's 25% of the population, Chinese population, who smoke traditional cigarettes. So it's 350 million. So this is incredible. Since 2010 has not changed at all. I mean, really is stable. And I will explain also later to you the reasons why it kept stable. We have more than 100 brands of cigarettes on the Chinese market. The annual sales, which is enormous, huge, $2.2 billion. It's really incredible. And also annual contribution in 2014, as you see, on tobacco, about $160 billion US dollars. As far as the market is concerned, from 2015 we have created a very strict campaign prohibiting smoking in public places inside restaurants or airports, public places in general. In Beijing, for example, in June, they created a campaign. If you smoke inside public places, then you need to pay a fine. Just, to implement that, but also our president did participate to that campaign together with POK's campaign in order to struggle to fight against second-hand passive smoke, of course. As you see here on these pictures, public places which implemented those ideas. You said the president? So it's a new campaign which is so important in China to fight against dangers linked to tobacco. It may have an impact also, on vapor products in general. Yes, in fact, for the as we said, or the whole population, I mean the part of the population which smoke in China, the vape market represents only 1%. Even not 1% on the whole traditional smokers. So let's imagine that, one part of the smokers will, change and switch to e-cig. We have a high potential market, but it's quite difficult because the market is very young and, also difficult to be enhanced and also to have data to make studies and surveys. So let's start now this new part for linked to the market. So, vape market, yes, it is representing 1% of the whole market of tobacco, but you have quite a good dynamism which is being enhanced. Yes, as we see here, for example, we have different brands like Smoke is very well known, Cigelet, Joytech, which are specialized on devices. And our group, our company is, amongst the other producers of e-liquids, which are starting to focus on liquid products also. And we try to change the made in China idea, which are non-qualified. We want really to change that. And also, we have more than 600 companies in China and 90% in Tianjin. So here, the law regulation, I would like to, add a word on that maybe later, but e-liquid products to get with or without nicotine, we must, make a great difference between those. And so the market and the e-cigarette sales in China has been made through the internet channel mainly. Why? Because, all products are sold on the internet. Retail, business retail is always is still more difficult and getting more and more difficult, and also because stores very, very expensive. So we actually consider Taobao here, which in the Alibaba world, which is the greatest portrait of online sales in China. It's really incredible. 57% of market shares. What about Ireland and Denmark? What about online sales on the internet? Does it work well, or it's mainly stores, specialized boutiques?
In Ireland, a lot of the retail is still e-retailers. The opening of shops, I think there's a lot of Irish companies that would probably open more shops if they knew exactly what the Irish government had in mind with the TPD, because of course our consultation hasn't been published yet, but it's mostly online.
Yeah, in Denmark it's shops as well who has the market. Still there are some small ones doing on the internet, but I think people are realizing that it's much better to get in a shop because they can get the right information about the e-cigarette, they can know how they understand the product. Lots of people has tried before in Denmark, that will be around 2008, 2009, they got it from England and they was just sent over. People didn't know how to use it. But now when the shops are opening, you can see it's much, much better because people can get the liquid and they can get the right information on each new products. So it's much easier for people to go into a shop.
I just wanted to add to that. There's been a lot of talk recently about different research products and different scientific studies that are looking at the behaviour of smokers as they move to vaping and the role that electronic cigarette shops and dedicated vaping shops can play in that. And that's our biggest aim as an association. It's to keep those shops open and available for smokers.
Alors les magasins spécialisés, c'est très important.
Specialized shops and stores are very important. France is maybe an intermediate situation because, apart from specialized boutiques, which represent 50% of sales, we have about 20% on sales on the internet for France. What about China? It is really web dominating? Yes. For general products, you have really web, internet, which is really dominating. Online sales, which is leading the market, no doubt. And as my slide explained before, you have two parts for the distribution, mainly online, but also through retail. So if you consider retail, maybe in the future, and it's for sure, tobacco and shops, selling tobacco products, traditional ones, will also have e-products, but it's not the case yet. So if you consider those platforms of distribution on the internet, so how it works, and so we have Alibaba and #1 shop, but also internet websites which are independent, like QG. I will explain that later. But min.com, buycigarette.com. So sorry, it's the wrong slide. Just to make a global presentation about Tmall, who represents more than 100,000 brands since the opening of the website in 2008. Because how does that is handled? It's not only that you want to open a store, you go and see, the website. It doesn't work like that. You need to have a brand from the company. Then you need to have a license through Tmall, and then you need to, of course, have the different certificates needed. So the daily turnover here, it's just an example, and to explain also why it is made mainly on the internet. In 2011, in November 2014, actually we have $5.7 billion just for that day. So here, just to introduce data on vaping and given by Tmall, so it's through Alibaba Group, you can have more than 400 stores for e-cigarettes, and general turnover. Look here, we have 1.5 million RMB, so 200 million euros, and for 2014, 500 million euros. So for this year, 2015, it's more or less the same, not so much, but for 2016, we have foreseen really about 3,000 million euros turnover. Now, what about the 2014 turnover in China? It is more or less the same as the British market and the French one, which are about the same, between 400 and 600 million euros. So, QG is an app which belongs to our company. How does it work? It's an app, you upload the app, it's geolocalization app, and you can find all the convenience stores, so-called convenience store, and tobacco products, e-cig, and so on and so forth. So you have the B2C platform, and this is B2B2C platform. And here, just to make a small analysis on research, online research, consumers of e-cigs. Here, if you have a look at the graph, it is made by Tobao, and this year, as you see, it is considered. We consider it has had a great increase according to the research which have been made, and actually sales are still stable, as you see. And as compared to China, different regions and towns, the northern part of China, Beijing, Xi'an, for example, there are towns which look for those products mainly. And as far as the consumption is concerned and turnover, these cities in the south consume more. So also Beijing, of course. So big cities in China. Now, what about characteristics of the consumers? Well, 31% of the consumers are women, because online e-cigs are made with gift presents, gift packs, and sometimes and often women buy those gifts are bought by women to offer to their husbands in order to quit smoking. And between 25 years to 29 are the peak of the consumption, and people also living in the digital era. So people connected even more than others, in fact. So I have a question in my mind about the image of vaping in China. Do smokers have the feeling that it is less dangerous than tobacco, or are we, like in the US or Europe, a misinformation or a lack of information, and people do not really know if vaping is less or more harmful? Well, first, advertising is not forbidden. So if you, for example, have a look on the media, you do not see so much products. But at the other hand, as soon as you have problems, for example, convenience stores which buy or sell the product, they cannot control if those people are less or more than 18 years old. And if they are non-qualified product, then the media, the press will deal with that. Minors smoking, for example. So they use, they use the term smoke. They always use this verb, to smoke. And then characteristics of consumers. As you said, we have a variety of aromas, flavors, and this is another challenge because China is the country per excellence of innovation for e-cig, mainly on materials, on new products. You have a very, very large offer, yes, and in fact the market, generally speaking, of vaping is very, very influenced by the US market. And the exhibition OCC Fair, which took place in California recently, and the products which were introduced there, presented there, well, they are at the same time presented in China. So consumers do prefer imported products. So here, for American companies, but also maybe for French, Danish or Irish companies, do you consider you have the opportunity to go and sell vaping products in China as compared as your market? I mean, as far as you were explaining it, licenses needed, or maybe it's not so easy to integrate and to penetrate the Chinese market. So the same for the automotive sector. Is it possible for producers, American and European producers, to penetrate your market? This penetration is not difficult, but the integrality is difficult. Because as I explained before, for Tmall, for example, online sales, you need to have a license. And, a store, for example, a foreign brand needs to have a license in China in order to create a platform, a store, online store. So, this is the first step. And second step, of course, maybe they can have a distributor, regional distributor on the Chinese territory to sell to retail store. Yes, absolutely. So, these are the most important brands sold on the internet sites. You can have a look, in fact, to, you have the brands, Chinese brands. The medium average price is is changing, as you see. So these are liquid products, but also devices. So we are to rechargeable products, not really cig-alikes, or both. Yes, both. But since this year the market changed, actually, the tanks and mods, cig-alikes, you will not find them so much. What about Ireland and Denmark as far as cig-alikes are concerned? We dealt with the United States with very high presence of cig-alikes. In France, it's not the case. We have very, very few cig-alikes. What about the in Ireland or in Denmark?
In Ireland, the cig-alike market is mainly contained to C-stores, garage forecourts, supermarkets, and I'm only aware of one or two brands of cig-alikes that are not owned by tobacco companies. So the presence of the tobacco companies on this market are only cig-alikes in the C-stores.
In Denmark, we don't have that much cig-alikes. I think people think it's crap. but there's one thing in the analysis you just told about. It was the people who was from 25 to 29. Yeah, in Denmark actually I think they're around 45 to 50. That is the market, because people who have started smoking on the age of 18 or 19 are not willing to stop. It is actually the guys who has been smoking for 20 or 25 years who says, oh, this is not good for my health, so now I quit the cigarettes and start vaping. And actually that is one of the things I was saying, okay, 25 to 29, then you must have really young people buying as well.
Because lots of the new generation, they don't want to smoke. So when they started to smoke, they are willing to quit smoking. So they are the new generation in China. They are willing to try some new things. And for the, I don't say the 40, around 50, because they smoke traditional tobacco for being so long time. So they say, why I need to quit?
Yeah, but that is the funniest part. Then you can see how the difference is, because in Denmark, the young people who goes into town and party and whatsoever, they don't want to use e-cigarettes. They just want to have regular cigarettes. And that is the thing I think that's important to change. It's better that they try the e-cigarettes than start on the regular cigarettes, because it's not good for the health.
Jingwen, la présentation, on a encore quelques slides à passer. Oui.
We still have got a few slides in your presentation, don't we? Yeah, for retail, earlier we talked about online sales. So, sales by retail stores. In May of this year, there were 150 stores. In 3 months, it went up to 600. Mainly in the north of China. And they formed an association to present the vape shop. In the vape shop, we made a survey, a small survey. That's why I was saying that market is quite difficult to collect figures, because they believe that there's competition, that there's confidentiality, etc. So they don't give out figures. Consumers that were surveyed prefer imported products, so they look for imported products, liquids and devices, foreign brands. And we noted that final consumers, as young generations use the internet a lot, they can look at information from the whole world, so they want quality now, not only from a price point of view, but also in terms of quality, in terms of flavors, design, etc. That counts a lot for them. So it's going up in terms of range, yes. So those are some photographs to show. On the right-hand side is the first experience center. You can go there just to try vaping. And the first store in Shenzhen, bearing in mind that about all industrialists are in Shenzhen. So some photographs. I think it's like in France, there are small stores, 10 to 20 square meters, but they've got about all products. So before I conclude this presentation, earlier I did not specify the fact that in China, the sale of products, of liquids with nicotine or without nicotine, it's quite it's not very clear, the law. It doesn't say whether it's authorized or not. It doesn't say that it's forbidden either. So Chinese professionals, will not take a risk. So in the future, in 2017, we consider that in 2017 the Chinese Bureau will take responsibility regarding the e-cigarette market, and obtaining a license for nicotine is very important to continue doing business. And we hope that it will be possible. Thank you very much, Jingwen. Thank you. Do you have any questions for Jingwen or the other speakers regarding 3 different markets but with common issue regarding the transfer of smokers to vaping, with this issue of nicotine, different age brackets. In Europe also, we know that the nicotine content is lowered. Are you also led to say that the content of nicotine is going to be lower and lower, or do you think it's going to stay at a level of 3 to 6 and that people will continue once they are converted to vaping to have low rate of nicotine?
I think the issue of nicotine levels in e-liquids is a contentious one because, okay, on the one hand, you have more experienced users. They're using better devices that deliver nicotine more efficiently. They're self-titrating their own nicotine levels. But I think the market and producers need to also keep in mind the smoker. So I think when I started using electronic cigarettes just over 3 years ago, if you had given me any kind of a electronic cigarette device with a 3 or a 6 milligram nicotine level, it probably wouldn't have stopped me smoking. What stopped me smoking was 24 milligram. And I think I personally believe from my members telling me about the smokers that are coming into their shops, smokers need access to higher nicotine levels. And I think that's just highlighted, one of the many, many issues with the TPD was that arbitrary cap on nicotine levels. Higher nicotine levels are important, and the industry needs to remember that.
Michael, do you feel that 20 is not enough, as written by the directive?
Actually, I think maybe the nicotine is high enough. It's because you got the new devices. The new devices are leaving the nicotine in another way that the old e-cigarettes are. So actually, I can see some people who can't take 24 milligrams on nicotine, they'll go down. But I think maybe that is the personalized thing in the e-cigarettes, is how you think how much nicotine you need.
Well, I suppose because I don't own a business myself, I'm working for this association as a consumer. So if I was a consumer and I was handed any type of device, your first interaction with the product as a smoker needs to have proof of concept. And if you have proof of concept with the product, you'll continue to use it and you'll smoke less and eventually you'll stop smoking. I'm not convinced that you can replace all of the nicotine and all of the behavior of smoking with lower nicotine levels. That's my own personal view as an ex-smoker.
Est-ce qu'il y a des questions?
Are there any questions? Merci beaucoup pour la
organized presentation that was given. I work with a lot of the upstream entities supplying the ingredients. So, for example, propylene glycol. Those upstream entities are regulated at the EU level underneath different regimes, one of being REACH and ROS. And what we find is that one of the most powerful and well-funded and well-organized of all the member state authorities is the Danish EPA. And it's often maybe forgotten in Europe just how powerful the Danish EPA is really, and how it leads on many of the issues underneath, for example, REACH authorization, and we see that in different ways as well. I was wondering, you spoke a little bit about the Danish position and the authorities and how proactive they may or may not become. You didn't mention the Danish EPA per se, and I was just wondering whether you could offer a few words on maybe whether or not you've interacted with the Danish EPA or whether it's really outside of their remit.
Actually, if we take how they make the law in Denmark, they haven't mentioned it. It was strictly out of the TPD how it was, and they just regulate higher. It was almost impossible to sell e-cigarettes in Denmark. it was like the guy who read it is a guy who called Thomas Rickler, and he's in the sorry, I missed the word for it, the health ministration. He's in the healthcare ministration, and there is a security administration. Those two guys work together on the law, but they didn't know who written the law because it fell down by two chairs. And afterwards here, they have taken the law in again and rewritten it on our hearing answers. I don't know how it will come out because we have asked for it, but they said they'll just wait. I think around 1st of November, we'll get some more details from the Danish law. But they promised us that they are going to look into our hearing answers. They are going to give us a year to get the implants. They have opened up their eyes and said, okay, there is an e-cigarette market in Denmark. Actually, half a year ago, they said, no, the e-cigarette market is not here because it's not legal. But in 2009, actually the Danish government said, all right, you can sell e-cigarettes, but they've forgotten. They didn't know that the TBD was voted. The Danish guys didn't know. There was only one Danish guy who knew that the TBD was voted yes. So that's why we are a bit confused in Denmark, because, you know, when people say, okay, we make this law, and they don't even know them themselves, that's the problem. And I can understand your concern, because Denmark are really high on each product you get in Denmark. They are really, really, really taking it carefully, because they don't want to have anything that's bad in Denmark. But I think it will be there, and I hope that the products will be like we know them today, because I can't see the harmful thing. And actually, when it came from England, 95% more healthy, it was the first time in Denmark people, they gave us a shot in all the newspapers and in everything. People changed it around. The healthcare organization went on the internet and said, oh, it's better. But actually the day after, one of the guys from there, she said, yeah, but it still kills people. So it was, you know, it's up and down all the time. But hopefully we know much more in the start of next month.
I just wanted to say a small word on these kind of regulatory authorities. I suppose we in the industry have to understand that they've been dealing with a certain number of products. They're used to dealing with those products. A lot of these people know nothing about electronic cigarettes. That's something that we're battling. I won't say battling. We're debating with one of our regulatory authorities at the moment, because of their misclassification of e-liquids. So, you know, I'm not going to say you have to see it from their point of view, but we do have to. These are a new product. They're not going to know the difference between, you know, PG with no nicotine and a 24 milligram liquid. They're just looking at bills of sale, they're looking at paperwork. They don't understand the product. And I think that's where we in the industry, we really need to take that step forward and educate these people on what these products are, how they should be classified, so that when the TPD consultation does come out, at least they have more of an idea of the product and what to do with it. And I think that needs to be industry-led. We need to do that.
Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions?
Any other questions?
The floor here, but one last question. Clearly, one of the concerns is that many of the products, particularly the e-liquids, are made outside of Europe and then imported into Europe. And then, you know, one of the issues that flows from that is perhaps the distributors, the retailers don't really understand what the formulations are made of. And many, of course, the formulations are made of in China. So I was wondering, what do the formulators, the manufacturers of the e-liquids in China think of that situation, and how are they reacting? Do they believe that they have a part to play in and trying to ensure that the formulations are better understood, or are they keen to retain that information as confidential and ensure that perhaps that information is not made publicly available?
I can say something about the liquid who's going into Denmark if it comes from China, it's not legal, but you can get the liquid from Europe. But what people do, they take it into Germany and let it be in Germany for a week and then take it into Denmark to make it legal. And that is one of the problems that I see. I think if we need to do it, we need to do it by the legal way. Do it the right way and figure out how we have the control on it. That is why I like there will be a law on it, but the law must not be so strict that we can't sell anything.
I think just very, very quickly, and it's one of the issues that we're currently facing in Ireland with some of our members and indeed our non-members, and that's maybe a lack of understanding of things like REACH and CLP labelling and stuff like that we have to adhere to in Ireland. So I think companies from the outside of the EU need to be very, very mindful of the market they're selling into. I think they need to take on board the advice from within the member state that they want to sell to. That would be my very quick thought on that.
Need European cooperation too.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Une dernière question.
One last question from me to ask you, you three, how you contemplate vaping in 10 years' time. Do you believe that the number of Irish smokers will be inferior to the number of vapers? Same thing for Denmark and China. How do you see the future of vaping products and the behavior of vapers in your three respective countries? Jingwen? Well, according to me, if the vaping market is developed in the right way, in a positive vision and very strategic one, I think in 10 years' time, the number of vapors will have increased. So the European directive, I believe in it, even though there are many things that I don't agree with, but I do believe in it because it's a means, a tool to regulate the market. Bearing in mind that France or Europe or the US are countries where the market has been developing for a while. China, which is a very recent market, will follow the French market or the European market or just like the US market. And I think that if we do things correctly, in a positive way and strategic way, I think the market will rise, will increase.
World in Denmark in 10 years.
I don't know if I want to say how it is in 10 years, but I'll try and say, I think if we do the right things in SEN and in the Danish standardization, I think the government is going to implant the right things in the law. They've given us a year now. We hope for it that it would have been taken out until May 2017. Hopefully we can do something about the EU there, and we can have a little bit more time to do the right things, because actually I think the ECIG will be here. No question about that, but I still think that the small things need to be right before just writing a law. And in Denmark, they will do like the minister has a majority just to take in the small implants who need it. So I think the law this time will be a bit more open, and when SEN comes out with something, they'll implant it. They'll take more the form of that one.
Gillian?
Well, the goal of public health in Ireland is to have this end game on tobacco by 2025. So what that means is that they want a smoking rate of less than 5% before 2025. Now, how they think that they're going to achieve that without the help of electronic cigarettes, I'm not sure. But I think if the industry works, more on the issue of standards, which we're doing with SEN, if they work more with educating consumers, and the industry as a whole need to educate the non-consumers, and that's been said in the last panel as well, because those are the hearts and minds of the people that we're trying to change, their views on this product. But I think in Ireland, at the moment, with a smoking rate of 19.5%, there or thereabouts, I think electronic cigarettes have a huge, huge, huge part to play in getting that rate down, you know, to 15% that it's never been before.
There is a potential.
There is a potential, huge.
Yeah, I do have one thing more. That is, when you say we need to educate the people who is not vaping. Also in Denmark, we made it in the trade organization that we are educating people to be in the shops. We've actually made a program. They need to go, when you go into the trade organization, people must go for a day or two, start so they know how the batteries, how the coils and whatsoever. So you really can make the people, the consumers, know which the product is. So that is a thing that we hope the government is going to listen to and say, all right, the trade organization, they have an education for it. Look for that, and you must be in that to have a store. That is one of the goals.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you. And let's see how it goes in the coming months with the TPD. And we're going to follow that very carefully. Thank you very much.